Getting ready for a Social Security disability hearing, wow, it can feel like a lot. Super overwhelming, right? But it really doesn't have to be. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the whole process and give you a clear, simple way to get your testimony ready. Let's jump in.
Okay, let's just cut right to the chase. This is the number one question, the one that causes the most stress for pretty much anyone who has a hearing coming up. You're probably imagining all kinds of tricky legal questions. But what if I told you that every single question the judge is going to ask you boils down to just one core idea?
Yep, that's it. That is the entire hearing, right there in a nutshell. Every question they ask, every piece of paper in your file, it's all laser focused on answering that one thing. Why can't you sustain a full-time job? If you can frame all your answers around this single point, you're not just answering questions, you're actually building your case.
All right, so how do you actually do that? How do you explain your limitations in a way that gets right to the heart of that core question? It's not enough to just list your medical diagnoses. Nope. It's all about connecting those diagnoses to specific, real-world limitations that stop you from being able to work an 8-hour day, 5 days a week.
And the good news is, you're not just guessing here. There's a system for this. The SSA has a very specific way of looking at everything, and they organize all your symptoms and issues into 2 main categories. If you can understand these 2 categories, you can structure your whole testimony in the exact language the judge needs to hear. And here they are. The 2 categories are exertional and non-exertional. I want you to think of them like 2 buckets, and every single thing that limits you, it's going to go into one of these 2 buckets. Understanding the difference between them is absolutely crucial.
And what's really helpful here is how simple the split is. Exertional, that's all about physical strength, lifting, carrying, standing, that kind of thing. Non-exertional is, well, it's pretty much everything else a job could possibly ask of you. We're talking about your ability to concentrate, all the way to how sensitive you might be to dust in the air.
Okay, first up, let's talk about that exertional bucket. These are the big physical actions. And here's the deal. You can't just be vague. It's not enough to say, oh, it's hard for me to stand. The judge needs numbers. How long can you sit before the pain really kicks in? How many feet can you walk? How many pounds can you actually lift? They need those concrete details.
Now we get to that second bucket, non-exertional limitations. And honestly, this category is huge. It's so much broader, and for a lot of people, this is where the real story of why they can't work is found. It covers the whole shebang, from mental health to issues with your posture, and even the side effects from the medication you have to take every day.
And wow, just look at this list. This really shows you the range we're talking about, right? Think about it. Can you actually stay focused for 2 hours straight? A lot of jobs just assume that you can. What about your vision? Almost every single desk job requires decent eyesight. Can you stoop down, reach over your head? Every one of these is a critical detail that helps paint the true picture of what you can and can't do. This brings us to what is probably the most important part of your preparation. You've got your list of limitations, that's great. But now you have to translate them. You have to learn to speak the very specific numbers-based language that the Social Security Administration uses to make its decisions. So here's the bottom line. I have anxiety is a symptom. It's not enough. My anxiety prevents me from concentrating for more than an hour at a time. That is a quantifiable limitation. See the difference? My back hurts is a symptom. I can only lift 10 pounds is a quantifiable limitation. The people making the decision need data they can plug into their formulas. So to speak their language, you gotta know their vocabulary. Let's look at a key term, occasional. When the SSA says a job requires occasional stooping, they don't just mean every now and then. Oh no, they mean a very specific amount of time. And that specific amount is up to 1/3 of an 8-hour workday, so about 2.5 hours. But here's the critical detail that can trip people up. That time is cumulative, spread throughout the whole day. So the real question isn't, can you do this for 30 minutes? It's, can you do this on and off for a total of 2.5 hours over a full shift? That's a huge difference. The next level up is frequently. This means performing an activity for 1/3 up to 2/3 of the day. That's anywhere from about 2.5 hours to over 5 hours. Honestly, knowing these definitions is like having the answer key to the test. Let's look at a real-world example from a key SSA rule. It says that performing light work requires standing and walking for at least 6 hours a day. Now look at the chart. The SSA requirement is that bar on the left. If your actual limit, the bar on the right, is only 4 hours, then boom, you're definitively ruled out from performing light work. It's that clear cut. Here's another great example using stooping. As you can see, both sedentary and light work require occasional stooping. And remember, that's up to 2.5 hours a day. But look at medium work. It jumps to frequent. This means that if your medical condition prevents you from stooping for even that occasional amount of time, you are ruled out from all 3 of these work levels based on that one limitation alone. Okay, so you get the framework and you're learning the language, but what about the person on the other side of the table, the administrative law judge, or ALJ? It's so easy to be intimidated, but let's take a moment to really understand their role. Here's a helpful way to think about it. Think of them less as a courtroom judge and more as an expert administrator. Their goal isn't to catch you in a lie. It's to check the boxes required by the regulations. You know, they actually used to be called hearing examiners, and that title really captures the job. They're there to examine the facts of your case and apply the rules. And they are incredibly experienced. I mean, the typical path involves graduating law school, getting hired by the SSA, and then spending about 7 years working inside the agency. It's almost like a medical residency, but for regulations. They learn the system inside and out before they ever sit on the bench. They are true experts. And at the end of the day, they are just people trying to do their job correctly, trying to apply all these rules fairly, and trying to make a sound decision based on the evidence that's presented to them. Your job is simply to give them the specific, quantified evidence they need to do that. So let's bring all of this together into a clear, actionable game plan. Based on everything we've just covered, here is exactly what you need to do to prepare for your hearing. It's a 5-step process. First, list your diagnoses. Then, identify all your exertional and non-exertional limitations. Step 4 is the most critical. Quantify everything. Put a number on it. And finally, connect every single one of those quantified limits back to the core question: how does this prevent you from working full-time? And that leaves us with one final thought. You live with your condition every single day. The challenge and your key to success is learning how to translate those daily struggles into the structured, data-driven language the system requires. When you do that, you're not just telling your story. You're giving the judge the exact information they need to approve your claim.